Welcome to the Resiliency of the Human Spirit podcast, where we share all about human triumphs for the collective's healing and empowerment. I am your host, Priscilla Hanley. My guest today is Jamie Miller. Jamie is a medium and an animal communicator. From a young age, she has always wanted to help others and to be of service. After going through hardships in her own life, Jamie started her healing journey, which led her to spirit. Her work is all about service, healing, and love. Jamie believes that through a journey of self-discovery, healing is possible for everyone. Without further ado, I'm going to bring Jamie on right now. Hi,
Hi,
Jamie.
Hi, Priscilla. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great, doing great.
I want to say we connected a couple months ago, and you shared your story with me then. And I am intrigued with your journey because I am all about connecting with the other side. So I am really thrilled to have you here today. So I'll just jump right in and have you start sharing your story with our audience on how your journey started into mediumship
Sure,
and animal communication.
sure. So I'm a spiritualist medium and animal communicator and I guess healer. So, what does that mean? Well, a medium is someone that brings through a loved one in spirit and they bring them through for another person. The purpose of mediumship is to prove that we don't die, that we do continue to live. And a spiritualist medium, I'm a member of the Spiritualist National Union. And so I just kind of follow how they really teach mediumship. I really believe in ethical mediumship, things like that. But how it got started, there were a lot of signposts from childhood. My father passed when I was 9, and I would see him in my dreams, and they were felt like real visitations. But that was really pushed down by my family because their beliefs were that it was bad, that it was evil, things like that. So but I really just remember even being a kid and watching like John Edward on TV and things like that, and just wishing I could communicate with my dad. But I dealt with several hardships, a lot of things like that, just a really difficult life. But over the next few decades, but then about 5.5 years ago, I basically hit a personal bottom where I needed to do something different. I think that started with sobriety, and that immediately almost I just started meditating, and it was really almost right away that I started feeling like people, my friends, loved ones were like coming to me. It was really bizarre. I thought, how is this happening? It didn't really make any sense. I didn't tell anybody, and that went on, that was in like 2019, and that lasted for about until the end of 2020. I finally got a reading for myself, and in that reading I was told I was a medium, and so that's how the journey started.
So when you said that your friends, departed loved ones were coming to you, how did that feel for you? I mean, did you hear them, see them, feel them? How did
It
that
was
manifest for you?
a few ways I remember is I would just, as soon as I would wake up, I would just have this impression that they were in spirit. So this one friend that I had, we were in a spiritual class together, like a group on Zoom. And one morning I woke up and just felt like her mother had passed. It's almost as if it was like a knowing and then like a visual. And it was really brief. But when in class that day, she had said, guys, I'm not doing so well. My mother just passed. And so I was like, what? So like I didn't, of course, I didn't say anything, but I felt like, well, her mother like told me like she
Mm.
passed. And it would be situations like that that kept happening. And I really just it took me a long I feel like it took me a long time to even accept it for myself. I mean, it was started in 2019. I went until the end of 2020.
Mhm.
I mean, so it just
Nice.
I didn't really believe it.
So your clair ability, so I guess your claircognizance ability, the inner knowing is pretty
Yeah.
strong. That's a
Yeah.
good thing.
it is, but it's been hard for me to trust it. So
Mhm.
that's a like a key ingredient to any kind, even if you're not a medium, because we all have the ability, but trusting what we get and what we feel and what we know, that's a whole nother ballgame.
Okay, so then you opened up to the spirit world, and then what happened next? How did you start learning about mediumship?
In early sobriety, I was definitely researching different spiritual things and learning about chakras and stuff like that. But when I went and saw the psychic medium and got a reading for myself, I ended up having him mentor me. And so he really taught me a lot of psychic stuff, like psychometry, which would be like holding an object in our
Mm-hmm.
hand and just saying what we feel about the object, and that's just information that comes to us. We can do that even with mediumship and things like that. We can just do like psychometry or looking at pictures of loved ones that have passed and just connecting with them. So he taught me a lot of stuff like that. He did introduce and I actually had a lot of fear too because of how I grew up. I was taught all of this was bad, even though I didn't believe it. I feel like I was different than my family. Just them instilling that in me still had a lot of like subconscious
Right.
fears.
Mm-hmm.
But one day he pulled out the Ouija board and I was like, no way, we're not doing that. But we did do it. So, and he was like showing me this isn't bad. It's a tool, basically.
I like that you bring up about the Ouija board because a lot of people have negative ideas about the Ouija board. People think the Ouija board is bad and or evil. So what would you
Yeah.
tell someone who believes there are like evil entities out there to get us? What would you say to
Yeah.
them?
It's my experience that I haven't had a bad experience with spirit. And so I don't believe that there is a negative spirit out there. Now, I do believe that we have each human being, we have our own healing journeys. And so it's usually our fears that bring that energy into it. And so so I think too, the Ouija board is more associated with like physical mediumship. And so like when we look at mediums, today we mostly see like on TV, and it's very common to see a medium like on stage or in a private sitting giving information and saying, I have your loved one here. Well, that's what's called mental mediumship, where the
Mhm.
medium is getting information through their consciousness. Physical mediumship is where everyone can experience the same thing. And so that's where like the Ouija board would be a tool for spirit to move that thing around and speak to us. But if we have fear about it or think, "Ooh, I hope no bad spirits come through," or if we even think that, that is the energy that spirit is going to have to work through. And so
Right,
it will amplify that, but it doesn't mean that spirit's bad. I just don't feel like why would they want to hurt us? Like it doesn't make any sense to me now. Like I feel like God, they don't want to hurt us. They only want to help us. And that's where we go. I mean, we're only here for a short time. So
right.
yeah.
It's interesting that you say they don't want to hurt us. My perspective is that no non-physical being can ever hurt us.
Well, and they can't like and truly like even other people, like we can be physically hurt and emotionally hurt, but at the end of the day, our natural state is spirit. No one can truly hurt your spirit. But yeah, they can't hurt us,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, we are infinite and eternal beings. So where are we gonna go? I believe there's no death as well, because with you being a medium, like when people transition, they're still living, they still go carry on
Yes.
and they just go somewhere else, right? So there's really no death at all. And I think
Right.
it's time for us to just relinquish that fear narrative about death being the end of existence for us. So I want to move on to physical mediumship. That is very interesting to me because you say it's like a group setting. So can you explain a little bit more about what goes into physical mediumship?
Sure. And I just will put out there, I'm not an expert. It's not my main forte. It's not something I have personally developed in. I have just had the opportunity into some workshops, kind of attend a few and do some exercises in physical mediumship. But a physical medium is someone that really needs to have a group of people to help them to develop. And so I really can't go into the whole thing about it because I want to do it justice. But if you're in like a physical medium is someone that can really bring through spirit and everyone can experience it. And so like a seance, for example, typically, not all the time, but if there's a physical medium, they would typically have a group of people that they sit in seance with at least once a week, minimum. And it would usually be the same people, the same, so it's the same energy.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone in that group is really giving that medium their energy, like, for example, from their solar plexus, things like that. And that's just to really build the power for the room.
Right.
And it just helps for the loved ones to really come through. And I thought I had an actual tool right beside me, but I don't. But I have what's called a seance trumpet. And it's basically like a cone, a big cone, but like a physical medium that can produce ectoplasm, things like that, which is a gas that everyone has in their body. But
Oh,
a physical medium makes more of it. And so when they sit and they develop, they can produce more of this ectoplasm and spirit can actually step into it and they can do different things. They can like speak through the trumpet. They can make a voice box and talk, and it would be the loved one's voice. They can actually manifest physically and things like that. And so it's really beautiful, and everyone in that room is experiencing it. So it's like everyone is experiencing the same thing. It was really popular in the beginning. Like, well, I wouldn't say the beginning of mediumship because it's actually mediumship's been around since the beginning of time. So,
right.
but I would say since the beginning of spiritualism, like in the 1800s, early 1900s, when there wasn't any electricity or just there wasn't a lot of electronics, a lot of distractions, people would just sit around and sit together and see what would happen. And so physical mediumship was like the first type of mediumship. So anyway, the mental mediumship is actually a newer form of mediumship, but it's what's most popular today.
So have you seen spirit manifest in the physical? That's interesting.
I have not. I have
Okay.
not been able to sit in a seance with a physical medium like that. It's pretty rare because I think it's just we're so distracted and it really takes a true dedication and it really takes like what's called a home circle, that group of people. But I know that there's beautiful physical mediums that are really trying to make it a comeback, but it's a really beautiful form of mediumship that where there's truly no doubt. You know, you can look it up and see pictures, but the pictures don't really do it justice. You really have to experience it because there's so much you can put fake pictures out there today, so it really
Mhm.
doesn't mean anything, but it's very meaningful to be able to hold your loved one's hand again and speak
Yeah.
to them and things like that. But the seance I've experienced, there were mediums that practiced physical mediumship, but they weren't a true physical medium per se. So, but we use the energy from all of us. And there were things that did happen. And so that was really, I mean, that was enough to change my level of, wow, this is amazing.
So
You
what
know,
happened? What did you experience?
so there were different people. So when we were in our circle, basically you get your energy up and you're singing like songs, like we were singing children's songs just to
Uh,
get that energy and
yeah.
that vibration high. We had some objects that we had because you sit in the dark, but we had objects with like glow and the dark things on it, and they would move. We got the table to move, and they had actually put a few of us under trance a few times and spoke through a few mediums, and I was one of them, which at the time that was my second workshop, and this was only last year. This is
Okay.
very recent, but I was still very shy. very unsure and still feeling very new in my confidence and things like
Mm.
that. They put me in trance and had me sing. And that is not something I would ever do. Like in my karaoke days, maybe, but not sober in a group of people, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So it, but that really shifted me. I'm like, wow, there's a lot that they can do.
Yeah. And that's why
That's
they
pretty
picked
cool.
you because spirit always picks on those shy ones. Let's just say that, right? It's like, no, you gotta evolve and you gotta change. I'm gonna pick you.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, man, if they can do that, and so I think they do. They'll do things to show us, hey, this is what we can do, you know, and then it will inspire you to. It did. It inspired me to start sitting in trance. Did I sing every time? No, it actually seems to fade back a bit, but it's almost
Mm,
like they give you all the goods at first to get you in, and then you're hooked. And then it's like, okay, now we have to develop you. So it's gonna
right.
it takes time, but I don't know. I really enjoy it. Yeah.
I'm glad. So when you say you sit in trance, trance is like we have like trance channels, right? Trance
Yeah.
channeling. So from what I understand, is technically you are channeling when you're in trance, right? So how does it feel for you on consciousness wise, emotionally, mentally, physically when you sit in trance?
So trance falls under the mental mediumship category, and I believe it's a bridge to physical mediumship because the physical medium needs to go into trance.
Mm,
But trance you can do, it's really just a deeper state of meditation. I would say scientifically, it's like the theta brainwave state. It's what you're really trying to get to. But you're really just letting go and just allowing spirit to work through you. And it's quite peaceful. It can really take a long time to develop because it's really hard, at least for me, in my experience, to quiet my own mind and to let go of control because I like to control everything. So, and I
yeah.
think a lot of us are like that. But it just actually feels quite beautiful. And physically, what does it feel like? It can feel like you can feel them. You can feel the energy on your face and on your body, and it can feel different for everybody. But if they want, I believe they actually want to speak through everybody. I actually feel we have hundreds and hundreds of spirit
Oh,
guides,
yeah.
and I feel like they basically just wait in line to
Hmm.
try to speak because there's so much they want to share to us, but there's not that many people willing to do it or have the courage to do it. Because even for me, there's some self-conscious things that come up. It brings up a
Mm,
lot of things we got to heal. But I just felt my throat itch. I felt like energy on my face and on my body. And but when you're going into that theta brainwave state, it's almost like a light sleep. And then that's where they can really come in and do healing, writing, art,
mm,
music, speaking, things like that. So yeah, it's really one of my favorite things.
right.
Yeah.
So I guess we can say that meditation is the first step to putting ourselves into trance, right? Quieting the mind and just focusing on
Yeah.
breathing and getting into a meditative state.
Yeah. I would say meditation is probably key to all of this. And then if you want to do mediumship, there's going to be a term called sitting in your power. And that's where we all have our own power within us, but also spirit has a lot of power. And so when we sit in our power, we just build it. We build it and it just helps us to connect better. And so sitting even just like daily in your power, it's not really a meditation, I would say, but it's just for me, I more sit with the intention
Mhm.
of sitting in my power. And it basically because when we work with spirit, we use our power up. And so, but
Right.
if we build it every day, we're almost like having it saturate into our own roots. And then, so when we work with spirit, bringing in a loved one for someone or however we do it, we're not just draining ourselves. So, and we can go longer. Because if I haven't sat in the power and I give someone a reading, if you've ever heard someone say, "Oh, they feel like they're fading away," well, the loved one's not fading away. Spirit's
Yeah,
here with us all the
right,
time, but your power is probably going low.
right.
So, yeah.
I think sitting in your power, it's the same as like building your chi, right? Like the life force energy.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that, but probably. Yeah, it's just called something different, you know?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I want to move on to some of your mediumship readings. So, what do they tell you? Like, okay, so really my question is I want to know when they transition, where do they go? Is there really
Yeah.
such a place like heaven, or are they more like earthbound and around us or whatever? How does that
Yeah.
work?
So I don't feel that we ever get like stuck here on Earth. Now, I would say that ghosts and stuff are something totally different. They're like a imprint of energy, but I really feel once our soul and spirit leave this body, it's right away. We're
Mm,
greeted into the spirit world. Where do we go for every person? It's probably a little bit different. There might be some that may need a more healing than others, but I just feel like we're immediately greeted by our loved ones. Now, is that loved ones like our family? It could be, but if you didn't have a good family, it's going to be your spirit family.
mm.
So, in your spirit guides, things like that. So, yeah, I just feel that we're just immediately greeted into the spirit world. And where I actually feel like it's right here when I've written in trance, asking some of those questions, asking where is spirit, they say it's right here. And so, okay, well, but I guess it's another vibration. And it's just like it's just like a world like this, but I mean, they have learning, they can do whatever. It's like just a whole world, a whole community of
Oh,
learning and working. And it's honestly, it's something I'm really trying to wrap my head around myself.
you mentioned spirit guides. So, how was your journey when you first started communicating with your spirit guide? How was
Um,
that for you?
I think in the beginning, I just wanted to know who my spirit guides were so bad. And then my first teacher, we would do different meditations, like a spirit guide tour and meet all your guides. I don't know if I truly believed it. Then it's kind of like, well, it sounds great, but I don't know if I believe it. But that was something I kind of personally struggled with. I used to write to my guides like before bed and ask them questions. And at first I thought I had like a guardian angel and that's who I would write to would be my guardian angel. But it has evolved as I've kind of developed
Hmm.
and it's changed. I still feel like we have angels, but it's almost like that's been kind of put over here. And because now when I work in trance, I feel like, well, when I speak, it sometimes my guide will say, I speak for many minds. So it's not just one guide. It's many. It's like a
Right, a
collective
collective,
speaking
yeah.
through. I have written names down. So like I would say my guide is Brian, but that speaks and writes through me. But honestly, I almost feel like it's probably more than one spirit kind of working as one.
Right.
So it's really a relationship that is still really evolving. I wrote Brian that name down for 8 months before I truly believed it. I mean, even though I do this work, I still have my own, like, I kind of hold myself back.
Right. That's just natural human nature. And you said you were
Yeah.
shy, so
Yeah.
you're just coming out of your shell, so that's okay. It's going to take time. But look at you now,
Yeah.
you're on the podcast, putting yourself out there. So,
And it's just like anyone can really do this work. I mean, we're all spirit. It doesn't matter if you're shy or you could be a medium that could be on TV. I wouldn't want to do that personally. That would probably go crazy, but it's just it really brings up our own healing journey. That's like the main thing. So really anything's possible. But yeah, I would never have said I would be on a podcast a year ago. Like, so yeah,
Yeah, I did not think I would be hosting a podcast. Ask me a year ago and I say you'd be crazy.
right, right. Isn't that funny? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
but that's a good thing. That shows us that we're evolving. We're stepping out of our comfort zone and just kind of doing new things. And that's how we
yeah,
evolve, right? Trying new things, learning new things. And I think we're both, at least both of us, we're on the right track, I think.
yeah. I think so. Yeah, and you're getting
So,
the word out there about spirit. So
yeah,
yeah,
I can only speak for myself. I think this podcast is really serving a higher purpose
yeah.
because my message anyway is all about healing and empowerment. So I know there's a lot of chaos, division, and heavy energy in the collective right now. So you and I were just doing our part to
Yeah.
help in the healing of our collective. So this is definitely a higher purpose. Let me stay on the topic of spirit guides. So, what advice would you give to somebody who's maybe having difficulty connecting with their spirit guides and wanting to connect with the spirit world or spirit guides or angels, whatever? What would you tell them? Like, what techniques or recommendations would you give them?
Well, if you're really sitting, if you're already sitting, if you're meditating, if you're really trying to quiet your mind for this work, I mean, honestly, I feel like if you're not interested in doing spirit work at all or being a medium, meditation is still incredibly helpful. But if you really, really, really want to know your spirit guides, like let it go. Like almost just let go of expectations because it doesn't really matter who they were. Like it doesn't really, for me, it doesn't matter that my guide's name is Brian.
Mhm.
Like it doesn't matter because they
Right.
shed who
The
they were in the
identity.
physical.
Yeah.
Yeah, the identity, that's not really who they are. That was just what they did, here in the physical. But of course, we need that. I think we need to, it's something that we want and we need, and it's helpful for us. But once I just said, I don't care. I don't even care to know their name. If they never tell me their name, it's fine. Because when I started sitting in trance, it's just learning to let go. I really just started focusing on that. But that's actually when it started to happen, when I started to get a name and
Oh,
things
wow.
like that. I still look back on that, on those other meditations I did with where I connected with my angel, and I'm like, well, were those my guides also? I mean, honestly, they probably were. But I think as we develop and evolve, eh, our guides may take like one will take a step back and then this other one may come
Right.
forward as depending on what we need and what they're helping us with. I actually feel like it's not so much they're like guiding us, but they're like walking with us. So they're more like a friend.
I love that.
So yeah. And I actually I feel this too. I mean, of course I don't have evidence of it, but I feel like it was almost like pre-planned. Like, hey, okay, I'm gonna go to Earth. Well, I'm gonna be your friend while and hold your hand while you're down there, or in that
Right.
vibration. And so when we go back to spirit, we go back with our friends.
Yeah, I like that you brought that up because that's what I believe too. Before we incarnate into physicality, I think we have a council like on the other
Yeah,
side, spirit council. Like, okay, when I go to Earth, this is what I want to learn XYZ, right? And who's going to help me learn XYZ? And then you kind of like create a team that's going to help
yeah,
you achieve your objectives on Earth. So that's what I believe. Like you say, I really do think we have hundreds and hundreds of guides.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, they've kind of had like, well, I don't know if they told me. I'd have to go back through my notes, like through my trance writing, but it just feels like there's a lot. And then just saying, I speak for many minds, or many minds speak through this medium. It's just like,
right.
wow, that's kind of like, I don't think we can even imagine. I try to imagine spirit world, and I just can't. It's like beyond what,
Yeah, we have amnesia on this
yeah,
plane, right? I think Our higher self definitely knows, but our physical self just can't comprehend what it means to be spirit, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So let me go now to animal communication. That's
Okay.
another fascinating topic. So let's talk a little bit about how your journey started into animal communication.
That's also quite something I wasn't really expecting. I mean, I've always loved animals. I mean, even as a child, I would just any kind of animal, like it wasn't scary, like reptiles, bugs, just I could spend all day in the woods. But I mean, I always felt like I could communicate with my own animals, but I just never called it animal communication. I definitely, in mediumship and starting that journey, I definitely had where my dog was ready to pass away, and I felt like she was telling me. So that was a knowing, but she wasn't sick on the outside. And so this was during COVID where the vet said, "Well, we can't see her if she's not sick." And I'm like, "But
Uh-huh.
I feel like she's saying she wants to pass." And
Oh,
they're like,
wow.
"Okay, you know, call when she's when she's
Yeah,
sick." I mean, like
right,
you book an appointment off of what you feel.
right.
So, uh, but she did end up, like I told her, I was like, "Jasmine, I can't get you in." And so she went outside and actually broke a nail, and her paw was bleeding like everywhere. And
Oh,
I was able to
oh,
get her in. And within 10 minutes of me getting her in, because I couldn't go in there with her because of the COVID
oh, right, right.
protocols, she passed away like 10 minutes. And
Wow.
and I don't feel she wanted to pass at home. And so that, of course, the loss of her was terrible. Like we all know. I mean, I almost feel like it's just as bad. Sometimes it can even be worse than it's a true loved one. It's a true family member. So it's
Right.
definitely difficult, whether it's an animal or a human. But when I started with this teacher that I'm with now, I think I was doing like a practice session in one of his classes, and one of the student mediums, or the mediums, I would say not student, but a medium, she was practicing giving me a spiritual assessment and told me I'm an animal communicator. And I thought, well, that's not really what I wanted to hear. Like I wasn't thinking of doing that. So
Right.
but I don't see how I just couldn't even imagine how that would happen. And I was still very shy. It was very hard for me to even practice with other mediums at that point. So I couldn't imagine it. But it was when I started reading for clients, this has been recent as well. Someone had asked for if I could bring through their animal. And I booked the session, but I booked it several weeks out so that I could practice. So I asked for like sitters, for
Right.
practice sitters. And he didn't always go that well. And I thought, I don't know if I can do this. But once I read for the client, she was able to really take the information. And so it's kind of been where I feel like spirit develops us. I mean, it's great we have teachers and things like that, but spirit is ultimately who's developing us. And so I just feel like they're really developing that skill. And it's really strange. I mean, sometimes like the animals come through. I mean, I can get clearer information. I don't know why it has to be psychological, because
Hmm.
spirit is infinite intelligence. So
Right.
it's not like it's definitely me, but maybe I connect better mentally with animals. I don't know, but it's been quite amazing. I feel like helping, if the purpose of mediumship is healing and to
Hmm.
prove we don't die, and then to have your animal come through, I think it can be very healing. Well, I also speak with the animals that are still in the physical too. So now I don't know what the difference is, because they have a lot to say as well. So, but I don't really do that for people, where I'm not going to communicate with your husband who's not here, because
Yeah.
I don't, maybe that's not ethical, but well, I don't know that, but it's weird how I don't really do that for people, but animals both in the physical and in spirit.
And so what are the animals saying? Any profound things that they're telling you about the other side?
You know what? So they haven't, well, sometimes they'll share what's going on the other side. So there was a cat that had transitioned, and they had showed that they were sitting on the lap of her father. And so it was kind of like then they kind of both came through together. And so the session wasn't to bring through a human loved one, it was just for the animal. And so she kind of got in that session like both loved ones
Right.
come through at the same time. So that was nice. And so I think it's just like animals that go to spirit, it's just like with us, we can really do what we want to do. So if I mean, there was one a dog showing me just being so happy and just chasing tennis balls, and like he really liked to dive into the water and catch tennis balls. And so he just showed that. But I think it's spirit is a lot more than what I can probably comprehend. But they try to really show things like that do come through where
Right.
they show what they're doing.
I'm glad because at least they're happy on the other side. But anyway, so let's move now into your business. So you talked about doing mediumship, animal communication, and you mentioned, I think, spiritual assessment. What is that about?
Yeah. So when someone's like going through a spiritual awakening, it can be, I'm sure you remember yours, where it's like, what's happening?
Right?
Am I crazy? But it's really for like other, and it honestly not even just for people starting their journey. I get a spiritual assessment every year. It's just something I like, but I kind of need someone on the outside to help me see
Mm-hmm.
my own what's happening. But it can really help us to understand what are your clairs, where are you going on your journey for your business, things like that. It's more advice about yourself and connect with still the spirit guides. And sometimes loved ones will also pop in with guidance, but it's more about guidance about what's happening with you,
Mm,
where a mediumship reading is really concentrating on the loved one. And I always focus on this. I feel like they come through on my right side. So I just feel like spirit always is like right here, but we
that's
all feel
okay.
spirit differently,
Yeah.
but yeah.
So where can people find you then online if they're interested to work with you?
My email and website is medium Jamie Miller. So
Okay. Are you on social media as well?
that, yeah, same name.
Okay. So you're on
So
Facebook?
Instagram, yeah, Instagram, Facebook, and then website. I think it's all medium Jamie Miller. So
Okay.
try to keep it as easy as possible.
Right. I will definitely put all that in the show notes. And so we have a few minutes left, and I have a signature closing question here for you that I ask all my guests. So my question to you is, what is your closing message for humanity to help in our collective healing and empowerment?
That is a really good question. I mean, not even a question, that a really good statement. Let's see. What I really feel is really important and what each of us need is healing and love. And so, and how can we do that to help the collective working on our own healing? It all starts with ourselves. What are your reactions to things? That is really kind of like going to be the key to how your healing journey is going. How are you reacting to different situations? If you're reacting in out of a place of anger, that could be a sign to look at that, or anything, but just start with yourself, because if we love ourselves and we heal ourselves, we're going to energetically naturally heal those around us, and it's just going to spread out. So I I honestly was a completely different person 5 years ago, but that this healing will really change you. I would say it all starts here in our heart. So that's a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This question didn't come from me, it came from somewhere else. It was not
Okay.
me. So,
Definitely feels like a higher
yeah,
vibrational
a
question.
higher perspective question, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I so resonate with your message. I also believe that it starts with us. So I like the fact that you talked about being more conscious on how we react to situations.
Yeah.
The thing is, if we are reacting out of anger, out of spite, out of revenge, we really need to look at ourselves because my perspective, all life experiences are neutral. We provide meaning to whatever we're going through in life, and that's why we react in negative ways. But if you can see the higher perspective, that if you have a challenge that you perceive to be negative, it's there for a reason, it's there to teach you something. So I would say instead of reacting, maybe choose to respond in a higher way.
I mean, this is like for myself, I can really go through stressful things and really work myself up and cause a lot more stress. And just in my mind, I can create so much more problems. And you know what though? Like recognizing it and seeing it is really good because if you're in that spot, then you can start to have like a choice to do something different. But we can really make ourselves sick. And it doesn't mean that we're never going to get angry or we're never going to react. But I think if we can just start noticing it and trying to work towards maybe having a different perspective or a different thought or a different or not react to life like what's on the news and things like
Right,
that, it because really we're all connected. I mean, and I think that's like the message, even animals, like with animal communication, it's we can connect with animals because we're all connected. We can actually connect with plants, with the
hmm
earth. Everything has a consciousness. And so, but most people aren't coming to me to read their plant. So, but what I do will affect everything around me and it does send out a ripple. And so, yeah, it's we're not going to be perfect. I mean, just when I moved, I had put myself under so much stress and I'm like, gosh, would I have been able to do this 5 years ago? Because I have a lot more tools in my toolbox
right.
today, and I thought, gosh, I probably need to sit some more, then meditate some more. So it happens, but there are a lot of times where I look and I'm like, oh, what that person said to me didn't hurt me like it would have. And I can see them coming from a place of pain rather
Right,
than just not seeing it and me getting, it kind of,
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, you bring up another important point because when somebody lashes out at you, like you said, probably they're coming from their own fear, they're coming from their own pain. So if we could just take the compassionate approach to their reaction and not get upset, like putting oil into the fire, right? You want to put
Yeah,
water into the fire to just calm everything down. And that will be the way to inner peace and peace within your world, right?
right. I do a lot of trance writing. It's really to get help for myself and just whatever advice I might need. And one of the things I wrote was there's more than two sides of the coin. There's more than 12 sides. So there's so many different perspectives. Me and you can experience that. Unless I'm just living your life, I'll never fully understand where you're coming from, but there's actually even more perspectives than what I could even imagine.
Yeah.
So things like that help me to say there's a lot more to any situation that I'll never have all the information. So I can form an opinion and get upset, but I'll never have all the information.
Yeah.
So that helps.
Yeah. I'm so glad we have this conversation today.
Me too. I love talking about stuff like this.
Oh, me too. I like
Yeah.
mediumship, channeling, spirit world is like my favorite
Yeah.
topics. Yeah.
Yeah. Healing.
Oh, yeah. That
Yeah.
too. Can't
Yeah.
forget about healing now.
No. Thank you
So,
so much.
yeah, thank you for being here. I had a wonderful conversation with you, and I will put all your links in the show notes and your email as well. I think you did say that to put your email in the show notes so people can contact you directly for a reading.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll do that too. Thank you so much, Jamie, for taking the time to join me and our audience here today. I really enjoyed our conversation. For everybody who's watching and listening, thank you for your time. And until next time, bye for now.